as we ask more questions, we can start to understand human behavior in a better way and kind of, like I said, get out of your own way as you're looking to be communicating within your business in a way that's very authentic and can resonate with people and understanding these kind of quirks of human behavior.
I'm Amy Porterfield, ex-corporate girl turned CEO of a multi-seven-figure business. But it wasn't all that long ago that I lacked the confidence, the budget, and the time to focus on growing my small but mighty business. Fast forward past many failed attempts and lessons learned, and you'll see the business I have today. One that changes lives and gives me more freedom than I ever thought possible. One that used to only exist as a daydream. I created the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to help you do the same. If you're an ambitious entrepreneur or one in the making who's looking to create a business that makes an impact and a life you love, you're in the right place, friend. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Online Marketing Made Easy. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the most important groups of people you know as a marketer, your customers. Before you start thinking, I already know my customers, Amy, I don't need this episode, I would challenge you to hear from my guest, behavior economics expert, Melina Palmer. She has simple, actionable tips on how to better connect with your ideal customer and then to grow your business. Now, Melina is a sales conversion expert teaching applied behavioral economics at Texas A&M University and CEO of The Brainy Business. Melina provides her clients a better understanding of why people buy or why they do not buy. And one thing I love about this episode is I kept bringing it back to membership owners, course creators, online marketers. So you'll hear a lot of examples that you can apply right away. And I think you're going to love this episode, especially because I kept bringing it back to online marketers who have courses and memberships and masterminds so that you could apply everything that Melina is talking about in this episode right away. So let's get to it. Melina, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, same. I'm delighted to be here.
Okay, so what you do is fascinating to me because ultimately, when I heard about you, I thought, wait a second. She can help us understand our customers better so that we can make a bigger impact and more money. And my audience, they're like, ding, ding, ding. That is exactly what we want. And I talk a lot about the ideal customer avatar, understanding your customer, getting in their head, meeting them where they're at. And this is something that we talk about on the show a lot. But what we don't talk about enough is how the heck do you do that? What are the questions we're supposed to be asking? What are the strategies we can use to really get in their head and pull that information out so that we can write better sales pages and webinars and all of that? So here's where I want to start. Tell everybody a little bit about what it is that you do and how that helps us understand our customers more. So just so we can kind of understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. So my work, I'm an applied behavioral economist, which I promise is more marketing focused than it sounds.
Sounds very scientific, my friend.
Yeah, it's that too, right? It is definitely bringing the science to the art of marketing, is what I would say. And having worked in marketing for a long time before I found behavioral economics and behavioral science, I know that you get a lot of people saying it's this sort of woo space and you have to go with your gut on things and just sort of hope that it's going to work out. What behavioral economics does is helps us to understand the brain better and know how humans really make decisions. So we are able to tap into the rules that the brain is using to make a decision. And what I do is help people to layer that into the way that they're communicating so that the message you choose is one that's going to work with a rule of the brain instead of against it so that customers buy and employees buy in.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, so talk to me about this. What are some challenges that you often see when you work with your clients in terms of the business owner or the entrepreneur and the customer they're trying to attract? What are some mistakes and challenges that you often see when you start to work with someone new?
Yeah. Well, I would say first thing is often you are not your best customer. So if you were the person that needed to buy what it is that you're offering, you probably wouldn't have been able to make the business that you have. And so the things that you think someone else is going to like and want and how they want to be communicated to is not always right. And so it tends to be like, let's say you are an accountant and you think all the things that you think people must know about how to be, how money works and whatever, you're making some real assumptions on those of us that do not know those things. And so what would be appealing to you is not appealing to those people. So being able to get out of your own way is a big piece that's important, and being able to then think about who that ideal person is. As you said in the show, in your book, you talk about that ideal customer avatar, knowing what they're about. And you can ask some questions of those people where you can find out specifically where they are in a moment, right? So to say, I know that I have these 5 people that are really great customers. And I would say if I could have 50 more of this one person, it would be a dream, right? So if you think through who those people are, and hopefully you have a few of them, but even if you just have one, you can start to tease out what it is about them that is different, what appeals to them. As you write your marketing pieces, you could be thinking, would Susie like this? And you can have them in mind, right? And sometimes you can even ask them. And when you know what it is that you can say, hey, Susie, like I've got this set up. You are such an amazing client. I love working with you. And I would love to have 50 more people just like you. Is it okay if I ask you a few questions? People love to hear things like that. We do respond well to that type of interaction when you can genuinely be connecting with someone. And the thing is, you're not asking them to buy more from you. You're not necessarily saying, "Oh, can you connect me to 50 more of all your friends and tell everybody?" You're saying, "I want to understand people better. Can you help me to know a little bit about you and your journey when you came to find me? What happened before you got to me?" And just be ready to listen.
I love that strategy. We teach it inside of my program, Digital Course Academy. We call them course calls, where if you have somebody that would be your ideal client, a lot of my students haven't sold anything yet through their course. So they have to say, like, this is the person I would love to be my client. So they get on a call with them and we give them a series of questions to ask and to really learn about that person. And I think one of the techniques is to listen more than you talk, because when you're doing these calls, it's so easy to say, this is what I'm doing and this is my idea and I'm hoping we're going to go this route. And then before you know it, you've talked the whole time and haven't listened to a word they've said.
Right. And this is where knowing that, again, you're not the customer, and the way that you think they should want to buy is not what matters. It's about them.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I am 15 years into my business and I teach people, many who are just starting out in entrepreneurship. So in my eyes, they are where I was. So I tend to take a lot of pride in thinking I know them, I know the struggles they're going through, what they're thinking right now. I've been in their shoes. So I tend to write copy and put together material based on how I felt 15 years ago. But are you saying even then it's important? And I want to talk about some more strategies we can use to understand our client. Even then, it's important to really hear it directly from them, even though I've been there, but I've 15 years removed.
Yes, I would say that. And not everyone has that experience that you have where they are in many ways they're that ideal client, and you can tap into that in a way we might think that we can, but we aren't always as good at it as we think that we are. So the thing is, if you're able to get someone to talk to you and you can hear it directly from them, like you said, if you're talking the whole time about what you think they want, they're gonna just say, "Oh, yeah, that sounds good," right? So when you say, "Hey, why do you buy Crest toothpaste?" And they say, "Well, I think I buy this one because it has baking soda in it." And you say, "Oh, good. So if I put baking soda in my toothpaste, you're gonna wanna buy it?" They say, "Yeah, I bet I'd wanna buy that." And then they don't. right? So you've set up this situation where they say, I bet, yeah, yeah, sure, I'd want to buy that thing. But
Oh, this happens all the time. When my students do course calls, they're like, I'm thinking about creating a course all about XYZ and charging this. Would you buy it? And the person on the other end says yes. And then when they go to sell, somehow they miss the mark and those people are not buying. So where's the disconnect?
well, so if you have them there and you want to be tapping into that mindset of where they're at, for one, they're it's super awkward to have someone say, I'm going to sell this thing. Would you buy it? And they say, yeah, right. Cause it feels weird. So they're going to say what they think you want to hear in some ways. The other thing is, there's a reason my book is called What Your Customer Wants and Can't Tell You. And that is because we have these two systems of our brain that are working simultaneously all the time. We have our, conscious and subconscious. And what is fascinating for most people to learn here is that we humans make an average of 35,000 decisions every single day, each of us. And, you definitely don't remember all of them. Maybe you remember 10 or 15, right? And most of that's done on this subconscious level, this processing that's done. And what's been found through research is you can actually kind of see the brain lie to itself if you ask someone, like, well, why did you like this thing? You said you liked it. Why was that? You can watch the brain light up trying to answer a question that it doesn't actually know the answer to. It's like lying to itself to try to explain why we did something and why we think we liked something. But it's really hard to tap into that ourselves. And it's the same for that customer. And if you ask them about something specific, like, would you buy this? Like, sure. If instead you ask them about the situation that they're in, like, tell me about a day, right? Like, so what's a problem that you've been having when you're thinking about your marketing, right? Or you're working on your content? Like, tell me, like, what's working really well? Or where do you struggle? And just hear them talk about it. And you'll be able to find these points where you can basically play therapist that tell me more. Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Why do you think that is? Getting them to just explain what's going on, you can find one, a problem you may not have realized existed. And also, two, is the way that they talk about it. So, if you are wanting to match the tone of that ideal customer, a thing where they say, oh my gosh, I hate when blah, blah, blah. And you can say, okay, and if you hate when blah, 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 we're here to solve with this thing. So if it's already a customer, you can know what they went through before they found you, and you can try to find more people in that moment. And it might be a place where you want to advertise. It might be something you want to be talking about, the level of frustration that they're feeling, or the struggle that they're dealing with, or that stress. You can pick which emotions you want to be tapping into in your language as you paint the story, but hear it from them. If you set them up in a way that's kind of priming them to say, well, you're probably dealing with this, they'll say, oh, yeah, I'm dealing with that. But it might not have been what made them call you or what would make them want to work with you.
It's so true. Letting them talk and talk and talk and reading between the lines, I think is so invaluable. And some people are listening right now and they're like, no, 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 I know that, these calls are important. But what I always challenge my students with, or my listeners, is that you know this, but have you done it? Have you actually gotten on these calls and asked the questions that are really important to understand your customers? I was thinking while you were sharing that, can you tell me, do you have like a case study of somebody that you've worked with where they've made some changes? I'd love to know what changes they made and then what kind of results that they saw from some of the things that you do to help people understand their customers more.
For sure. And I'm going to jump into what is some of the concepts that we can be applying to. So this is actually a financial institution that I worked with a few years back. And financial institutions are the kind of king of jargon in these lots of, we all get into our own jargon, but they had a message that they were wanting to be putting out for a new checking account, and they were going to be communicating it by saying, earn 1.26% APY on up to $25,000 in balances was what they were going to put on their billboards. Not compelling, to say the least. And especially they're in Southern California, and as people are like driving by on the freeway, we're not interested at all. And so in working with them on some of their marketing, introduce them to a concept that is known as framing, which is that how you say something matters more than what you are actually saying. And there is way more than just one way to communicate something, especially when we're talking about numbers. Case in point, imagine you're going to the grocery store, you need to buy some hamburger. And you get there and you see there are two stacks almost identical. One is labeled as 90% fat free, the other is 10% fat. Which one do we want to buy? Most people, and I've, talked about this with thousands of people around the world, we always say 90% fat free. Logically, we know it's the same thing, but it feels very different when it hits us. And it's the same with anything you're communicating. And that, 1.26% APY kind of snooze fest, right? It doesn't I'm not compelled to do anything. So I got them to reframe that and instead to say, did your checking account pay you $315 last year? And so that is the 1.26% times the 25,000, but in a way that you can very quickly maybe say yes, but more likely say no. And hey, who's talking about that? Right? We've now evoked some curiosity. I want to go learn more about this thing. You've made them want to bridge that gap, which is a really big thing because even if you understand the math of the other one, you think, oh, I'll look at that later. I'm going to put that in the drawer. I'm going to go check that out sometime. And then the promotion's gone, right? So in this case, they didn't change anything about their media buy, how much they were spending. We reframed it in this way, and they saw a 60% increase in month over month account openings.
Whoa. Okay, that's really big. I love this concept. Okay, so it's called framing, and it's really and I think tell me if this is how my listeners can apply it. Let's say they go to a sales page and they look at one of their headlines. And when you're looking at the copy you already wrote, because a lot of people listening, they've written a lot of stuff already, but they have lead pages that aren't converting and sales pages that aren't selling like they want it to. And if they look at a headline, and what's a question you could ask yourself to know if maybe that needs to be reframed? Because a lot of the time, the messaging of my new students, especially, it is not resonating with their audience. So what could they do to kind of find that reframe?
So the best thing that you can be doing is you can just try and test a lot of different things, right? We can ask a bunch of, like, if we try to write it this way, try to write it that way. If you do have something with a number, you could say, what would that mean if I was going to say it in a different way? So, like something along the lines of a stat like 66% of people don't have enough money saved for a $500 emergency. Do you, right? Think about something like this. And again, I just had a financial institution in my head because I was talking about it. They love to use this stat, but we're a herding species. And so hearing that 66% of people, more than most, don't have enough money saved, I'm going to think, oh, all right, like I'm not as like everybody else doesn't have money saved either. I'm going to buy the Xbox and I'm going to come back and save tomorrow, right? We didn't mean to, but you kind of nudged them in the wrong direction. And so if you instead look for that herd, being that herding species, that is in the behavior that you're wanting people to go to show there are a lot of people there. So 66% of Americans not having enough money saved means that you have, a third of people are. And if that's across America, that's millions of people, right? So if we're instead going to say, X million people are prepared for this type of emergency. Are you?
Ooh, okay. That's a great reframe. I see what you're saying. The first one is like, yeah, I'm like everyone else. It's cool. The second one is, wait, all these people have this amount saved. I don't. I don't want to be the outlier. I don't want to be different. And I know that this thing is good. I need to save. That is so interesting. Okay, I'm loving this. Real quick, I don't want to get you off track because I actually want to hear a few more strategies that you're sharing. This is like the gold that my audience will love. But when you said herding species, what are some other, I guess it would be these behaviors that humans have that you know of as the expert that we need to be aware of? Like, because that was really gold right there. I guess it's like the herd mentality, which has a negative connotation, but I understand what you're saying. We want to be just like everyone else. What else do you know about human behavior that we can use in our marketing?
Oh, so many. This is legitimately my whole job, finding these sorts of things. So social proof is something that we are drawn to as when it comes to that hurting, when we're looking to make a decision in a place that we haven't done something before, looking to others like us. And that's a key piece, right? So as you're looking for that ideal avatar that you're searching for, understanding where I can see, oh, people like me like this. So I should too, right? It helps me to feel safe. So if something has the 5-star rating, you have reviews and testimonials from people like you, that helps you to feel safe. And to say, you're one of the 10,000 people who we've had 10,000 plus people take this course, or this 60 million people that have listened to your podcast, right? Like, then you say, oh, this feels like a safe bet. I'm going to jump into this thing.
Okay, cool. Social proof, totally agree. That is a big one.
Yeah. So, actually, numbers in general, which I said a little bit about already, but they really are very powerful in the way that we're going to be communicating information. And often in a way that may feel uncomfortable to throw out there, but you just need to like push past that feeling, get out of your own way and test a few things. So, there's an example of a study that was done at grocery store end cap displays. And so half of them said Snickers bars by them for your freezer. And the other said Snickers bars by 18 for your freezer. Now, we can all agree that 18 is a lot of Snickers bars.
But I like it.
Right, and more than what we would buy. And if you were doing the marketing for that, you would probably feel like that's an arbitrary number and I don't want to have to be on the hook for it, and people are going to ask how I came up for it, and them is unlimited and people could get 100 Snickers bars if they want it. You're going to logic yourself into sticking with what feels safe in that status quo in using them. And it may not feel like it would have that much of a difference, but this study found that when they used the number 18, sales increased by 38% over when you had the word them. And so there are a couple of things happening here. One, it's not that the number 18 itself is magic, right? But if we think about when, you're walking down that, aisle at the grocery store and you see the them, it's more like a fancy word for zero because you weren't planning on buying any. Maybe you get two or something if it breaks through that subconscious filter. When it's 18, you're going to go, whoa, right? Like something's weird here. Like what's going on? And maybe we think, hey, 18, I'm way better than everybody else. I don't need 18. I'll just get 6, right? So we get anchored on a number and then we'll move up or down from that place. And so when you know what you want people to do, what the next step is for them in a process, you can use the number in a way that's going to be nudging their behavior. Now, the other thing is there's a slight shift in the question that's being asked behind the statement that's on the ad. So stick with me on this. Right? In the case of them, we're saying, would you like some Snickers bars? Do you want any? Right. In the case of the 18, you're asking, how many do you want to buy? Right. It's a slightly reframed question, but it has that implied sale that it's going to happen. And so, like, next up, how many of these do you want? And that tiny, tiny shift can make a huge, huge difference.
I get that. Absolutely. One thing that I was thinking when you were saying that, in addition to how many are you going to buy, is I have a friend that recently came out with a sales page, and it was incredible to see her in action. She's a really great copywriter. And every headline, she was talking about some of her marketing strategies she would teach in this program she created. And it was, I'm making this up, but it was something like the one lead magnet that got me 2,853 new leads,
Mm,
or the sales funnel where I made $151,000.81. It
yeah.
was so specific and I was intrigued.
Yeah.
I paid more attention because it was so oddly specific. I just was like,
Yes.
what?
Right. Well, so actually, yes, this is a principle through behavioral science as well. People perceive that when we are really specific like that, when there's a really clear number, that the person knows more about what they're talking about, we think it's more truthful and honest, right?
Yes, that felt very real to me.
Right, right. And so what's happening here is, and so my friend Richard Shotton, he's written some really great books, and including one he talks, it's called The Illusion of Choice, and it's the 16 and a half, behavioral principles that you need to know or whatnot, right? Which the half is, of course, an important point here. And so with that, when we talk about this, when he was on my show, he was talking about how it's like if you ask how old's your cousin, say, oh, I mean, it's like in his early 40s, I think, right? Maybe late 40s, mid 40s, right? Not sure. When you ask how old my brother or sister is, I can say, "Oh, he's 42, but he's going to be turning 43 in August," right? It's specific because you're closer to it when you know more about it. And so this has been ingrained in us over time that when it's that specificity, it's much more likely to be true. And so where you can say, over a million sold or whatever, but if you say, like you said, 1,272,563 and counting, right? Then it's like, whoa, like they're paying attention to this, they're on it, and it's not just something, we're pulling out.
Okay. I'm living for these types of tips. And I promise you, my listeners are like, yes, can we do one more? Give me one more human behavioral kind of thing where you're like, this is what I know about humans and this is what you could do about it.
Yeah. Well, one thing when it comes to pricing and things that people get wrong all the time when it's time to sell something, the biggest, just a huge mistake I see people make all the time is that we think we need to start low and work our way up the ladder of options. But because of what we just talked about with anchoring, actually, that is the reverse of what you want to do because that first number that you throw out is going to become the anchor. And so if you were to say, we have the first courses start for as little as $5 a month, and we also have an option that is $50, or for $500 you can have this thing. You go, like 500 sounds real big when I'm hearing those numbers. I'm going to start with 5, and then maybe I want to do something else later. So let's assume in this case you wanted to be selling that $50 option. So if instead you say, hey, we have a lot of different options available. We have this $500 option, which has A, B, and C. We also have one that's just $50 a month that has X, Y, and Z. And, there are other options if you were needing to look at any of those as well. What seems like a good fit for you? And any that, like, does that feel like a fit for you? What do you think? That call to action in that sales process is important. But we hear 50 sounded very different when we started at 500 than it did when we started at 5. And so when you know what you want to sell, creating your best offer, the thing that is the best choice for people, I always encourage my clients and through my books, you want to then create a wingman for that product or service, whatever it is. So it's something that its only job is to make the best offer look good. It should be something that's very similar to the best offer, but is, clearly a worse deal. Maybe it's more expensive. And it's not something that people wouldn't want to buy. It's not like it's bad quality. You would likely be delighted if people were to get it. But most people don't need this, exorbitant type of option.
I would love for you to tell me how to do this. So we do a lot of webinars, a lot of my students do. And they have usually, let's pretend the course is $500. They're selling a $500 digital course and they're on a webinar. And the majority of people will buy at the $500 level, but they also have a VIP level that's 1,000. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really only for like 200 people can get into the VIP. Once it's sold out, it's sold out. And then they've got the $500 offer. And again, the majority of people will go for the $500 offer because that's what they can afford. But my students want to fill up the 200 spots in the VIP. So if they only have 2 price points, my question is, how do they talk about that in a way that the VIP is appealing? Do they need to create a $5,000 VIP day that most people will not take at all in order to anchor the VIP? How would that work?
Yeah, that's a really good strategy for it. And that's a place where you could start. So you could have the super, super exclusives club that's, only 5 or 10 that's at that $5,000 level, right? An example. And to say, we've got this amazing experience where you get to have, the a full day with me, and we're going to, this resort or whatever, right? You can build this out in a way, again, to something that you would be happy if people were to buy, because I have had people in the past, you create the wingman and then realize that people actually really want that thing, and if you built it out with a lot of hand holding, and doing a lot of work, and then you go, "Ugh, I don't wanna do any of that stuff," no good, right? So create the delightful one. Like, if you have, so you have the VIP day, and let's say it's, in Italy or something, to make it extreme. Great, delightful. I would love if someone was to get that. And then we also have, and there are just 10 of those, so act quickly to be able to snag one of those. We also have these 200 special spots that are just $1,000 to be able to buy in, and you're going to get the full program, plus you get pre-entry and the blah, 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 blah. And, to learn more about all of the options, you can come over here and check out, we also have it's just $500 for anybody who wants to buy in. So again, if we start at 1,000 seems much more reasonable. And then we decide there will still be people that go down to the 500. But having, if there is that exclusivity, it's scarce to get the 200 at this other price. That's great. I would say though, potentially 200 might be too many. And so if you look at, you could potentially open up another tier or something if you had to. But if you were to do the first
I
50,
was gonna say 50. I agree with you. 50 seems more exclusive and more exciting. But also, when I was sharing that scenario with you, a lot of times my students will be just happy if everyone took the $500 offer, and their VIP, let's say it's just 50, because it's just 50 spots, it likely is going to fill up because it's just 50. And so that right there, the people that know they want it and want to pay more, it's like an easy decision for them. But I think along the lines of what you're teaching here, a lot of my students will use VIP as a way to get more people into the 500 based on what you said. Does that make sense? And not even do the exclusive Italy one, just VIP and 500. And because VIP, you start with that one, you say it's $1,000. But then I also have the $500 offer and you get this, this, and that. Now that $500 offer becomes so appealing where before they might not have thought about buying at all.
absolutely. And if you do limit it to something like 50, now we have where social proof can start to work for us much quicker. And we can say just 10 left, just 5 spots left. We're 95% of the way sold out. Claim this before it's gone. And then people go, oh, I better get on top of this thing. Everybody else is doing it. Whereas if you have 150 left and you say 25% of them are gone, like that doesn't feel very good.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I have a few more questions for you, but I always do this. I kind of sideswipe the conversation because I was like, tell me about more human behavior that we could learn from and be better marketers. But you were on such a great track, and we were talking about framing and we talked about anchoring. And I'm just curious, when we're collecting data, we talked about, calling, having those calls with people so that they really understand who their audience is. Beyond calls and surveys, what else can we do to actually hear from our audience or pay attention better to really hear directly from them? Because where I get a little stuck here is if my audience who doesn't know their audience yet well, if they're newbies, you might say, what might your best customer think? They can make a guess, but they're not sure yet. They really struggle with that. So beyond talking to them on a call or doing a survey, are there a few other things that they could try to get that information versus just kind of guessing?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I think is really important for anyone in business to decide is to know whether your business is going to be one of quality or one of value.
Whoa, I sounds like the exact same thing to me. What are you talking about? I was here waiting for quantity.
Right, yeah. So when it comes to quality business, this is where you maybe are more of a luxury brand. You are likely more expensive than some of the other options. Maybe you have more certifications, you invest in different ROI, it's, exclusive, whatever. This side of things, if you think about, again, any luxury brand, you're selling to celebrities, this higher price point is on that quality side. And it's not to say it can't be a good value for people, but you're leading with the quality and the luxuriousness of the whole thing, and price, really it becomes to where it's not about price in these cases. So then the other side is if you want to be a value business, we're thinking about discounts, we're thinking about having where it's such a great deal, act now quick, like lots of sales, quick kind of churn and turn on things, and you have a lot of deals, and it's showing why it's such a better deal than what you're doing right now. You could have all this for just the low price of X, right?
Okay. The majority of my listeners, it's quality for sure.
And I bet every single one of them feels swayed, we'll say around November 15th, when you look around and see everyone's going to be doing a year end sale and some sort of a discount. And you go, should I do that too? And then you try to throw something out there last minute that's this random discount that's, 30% off or 50% off or something huge that's totally out of alignment with being a quality business, right? Louis Vuitton does not do sales. They don't have discounts and they never will, and it's because they're on that quality side, and they're exclusive for different reasons, and they own that. And so really going all in. And picking whether first you are of quality, which was what we're hearing here, or of value. So if you're on the quality side, you should have round number pricing. So 500, not 499. We immediately feel that discount vibe when it comes to that rounded down number. And so if we're wanting to be showcasing this quality piece, having a round number price is an easy way to be doing that, and just owning that this is what the cost is, right? Like this is what it is. And then we can say, okay, it's 500 and that's what it is. And I'm going to own that for a while. And then we don't have to do discounts all the time. Maybe instead of discounts, it's some sort of extra gift or something that would be coming on top. Or like we said, we have these exclusive spots that are only for these people that get these perks and extra rewards or something that comes along with being a member or whatever that happens to
I
be.
do love that. But wait, I got to ask you about pricing real fast because this is everything we do in our industry. I would say I'm more quality than value. I never discount my programs. We don't do flash sales or anything like that. And we do exactly what you just said. We might add a special experience on as a bonus or special access to us to entice people, but we stay more with the quality than the value side of it. However, we do the 1997 type of pricing because I've always been taught when someone sees that, the human brain is like, oh, it's under $2,000. And so that would be really freaky for me to step away from that.
Well, what's interesting from that too is you could even do something like 1950 or even like 1975 is a little bit different, but it still is kind of in that rounded number. And so just to know, and where you've done it for a long time and a lot of people are in there with what you're selling, and it's working for you. So it's not saying that you have to go in and change the thing. However, if it was starting from the beginning, I would say to be owning that even number if that's what you're wanting people to buy in on. And what's funny about it too is to know that something like, so 1999 doesn't feel the same as 2000, which is not the same as 2001. Or I've seen sometimes where people have something they're looking to sell and it's for $1,212 because that's the low, it's like that's the lowest I can get it and still make money. I'll say that feels like you are nickel and diming me in the worst kind of way. Someone would prefer to pay $1,250 than $1,212 often. Right. So just thinking about them in that sort of a way is really important. And I think if you are willing to take the plunge, dear listener, and trust me on owning the number for quality, and just to know you when you hear that 4.99 for exactly the same you're talking about, or 4.97 or whatever it is, you're thinking it's a discount, it's a deal. And so is that what you want aligned with the brand? That's the question.
I have a mastermind that I'm working on, and we haven't settled on the price, but let's say it's $30,000 a year. I would never say it's like 29,997. Like, I would never do that. Right? And so I think, like, the more luxury you get, this mastermind's really special, and it's a year experience, and we're looking for, people that are really serious about getting results. So I understand that pricing, when I look at it in a bigger way in my industry, that definitely does make sense.
Right. And that's where you can say too, if you want to have an option, you say that's just $2,500 a month, right? Or 2750 or whatever it comes to, that you can still have a little bit of a balance to it. And like, that's a great deal, everyone. When Amy starts selling that, we're all going to jump in.
Jump on it. Here we go. I love it. Thanks for that.
So, if you have decided that you are a quality brand, you likely can think about some of the brands that your ideal customer also buys. Who do they follow on Instagram or TikTok? Where do they like to shop? How are they commenting on social media? You can start to then see what are the hashtags that they are using? What are the trends that they care about? Are they buying Stanley cups or something else? As they are then raging about something or loving and sharing something, you can be finding how they're communicating with these other brands that are in line with where you want to be. So if your ideal customer is buying those things and I can be in here with them, I can see how they're talking, what they're thinking about. They're probably talking about a lot of their problems and pet peeves on social media because that's what people do. And so if you see, I solve this thing, you can then start to be visible in that space. And maybe you find an influencer that is going to align with your brand and someone that you can be connecting with, and some of these nano influencers, even as you're jumping into that space. And you can be then feeling really authentic as someone that's here with us, that gets us, they're of us. That's part of my identity. And then I want to buy this and share it with all my friends as well.
Amen to that. I love that. While you were sharing that, I was thinking, you've done so much work in this area. And I want you to talk a little bit about your third book, which is What Your Customers Want and Can't Tell You. But before we talk about that, out of all the work that you've done, what do you think is that one piece of advice that business owners need to know to immediately improve how they're connecting with their audience?
Yeah, the top tip that I always give to people, and so I end every episode of the Brainy Business podcast with be thoughtful. It's the signature line on my email. It's kind of everything as we approach the world here at the Brainy Business. And so be thoughtful applies in two ways. One is to know that it's in getting out of your own way and asking that, like, why did I click on this? And why did I feel like that was automatically spam? I wonder why this is on that shelf and not over here. And what if we did this way? And why did I like this or whatever, right? You could, as we ask more questions, we can start to understand human behavior in a better way and kind of, like I said, get out of your own way as you're looking to be communicating within your business in a way that's very authentic and can resonate with people, and understanding these kind of quirks of human behavior. The other piece is business is a long game and it's all about relationships. And so, another principle in behavioral economics is about reciprocity, and that when humans are given something, they feel the need to give back. And so, just giving freely all the time, be super generous as much as you can, and lead magnets. We talked about this when you were so kind as to join me on the Brainy Business, Amy. But like, if you're giving out things, it's going to come back in a positive way. Even just on that social media example I was talking about, It's one thing to be, sneaking a peek through the window of social media, right? To be snooping on everybody. It's another thing to like a thing. It's something to bookmark the thing. Commenting and being seen is something people are looking for comments and they remember some of those. What about when you go and share someone else's stuff on your to your audience without asking for anything else and just saying, "Whoa, this is amazing that they're doing this. Look how cool this is." They will remember you, right? And they will want to talk about you even if they're not the right person to buy from you. We remember people that share our content. And when you have something shareable, maybe they're going to find it. They want to give a little something back to you. So putting that goodness out in the world, I think it's always going to come back, 10 times over.
Amen to that. Absolutely. I am so thrilled that you came here today. It's so fun to talk about human behavior and what you know to make our marketing better. So tell everyone a little bit about your book and where they can find it.
Of course. Well, as you said, I have multiple. My books are What Your Customer Wants and Can't Tell You, What Your Employees Need and Can't Tell You, and The Truth About Pricing. They are all available wherever books are sold, and you can get them, of course, on my website at thebrainybusiness.com. For this audience, if they go to thebrainybusiness.com/OMME, you can get a chapter of any of those books for free to see if it's a fit for you. There's that reciprocity in there again. And also, you can just find me on all the socials as The Brainy Biz if you wanted to connect, or Melina Palmer on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, my friend, for coming on the show. Truly appreciate you. And that was really valuable.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. So there you have it. I think my favorite part of this episode was learning about how humans work and how they think and how they behave so that we could tweak our marketing. My favorite part for sure was that framing that she talked about. So if you missed that part, go back talking about framing, because I think we could all reframe some of our email subject lines, some of our headlines on our sales pages, our titles of our webinars, using what she taught here. So I thought that was really valuable. Okay, so tell me what you liked most about this episode. Send me a DM on Instagram. I'm just at Amy Porterfield. I want to hear about your biggest takeaway and what you thought about this episode. And again, thanks for joining me. I cannot wait to see you next week, same time, same place. Bye for now.